Hey, this is Notser, and today we're doing a training room session. This is on the public test server, 8.0 round 3 testing, and yes, I am a Minotaur. But this is in a training room. It's about 70% player control. That's, 7 to 8 ships. And I told them, treat it like a random battle. If you want to go AA, you can go AA. If you want to go your regular build, go your regular build. I just wanted to see the potential 8.0 random battle scenario. And, 2 aircraft carriers per side, I feel is going to be typical, especially early on. And I did deliberately avoid 3. I feel like 3 is honestly imbalanced. But 2 is something we should expect. Now, I would prefer 1 per side. I feel like that's the best. But I think 2 is a reasonable expectation. I am an anti-air build, obviously, in the Minotaur, and I'm just going to be doing what I would typically do. I'm providing a AA coverage bubble for the majority of my team. I think that's what the Minotaur would do, and we're going to attempt to try and take C point as a team. The one issue, though, is that the DDs are not player controlled. They are bots, so they're probably going to suck real fast. That's just the nature of it. But, on the first attack, a squadron lost 12,000 hit points to my Minotaur. And it looked like pretty typical, he's looking to try and use his attack squadron against a DD. And clearly he can't because there's a really big light cruiser with scary AA that's protecting in this sort of bubble. Now, enemy, we're going to just engage. There's a couple bots on the enemy team, but, the majority is player control. Now, another enemy aircraft carrier, he's trying to attack the friendly Yamato, and he loses a really big section. And take note of how quickly a cruiser can deal with the fighter consumable. It was up for, half a second. That's pretty instantaneous. Now, the fighter skill just exists in the world. The fighters actually are vulnerable to AA. As the aircraft carrier, what you're going to have to consider is the time that you want your fighter to be useful. Do you want it to be over an aircraft that's under attack? Well, if there's a friendly cruiser in the area, the fighter's going to be shot down pretty quickly. Or do you want to sort of manipulate the line of sight game and place the fighter over an island patch that prevents any AA from engaging it, but it also prevents your fighter from being in the absolute maximum best position? Now, for this position right now, I was thinking, okay, I am a light cruiser. I need to provide my AA bubble to the majority of my team, and I can't afford to be right up against the island because line of sight is something that AA considers now. And if I am right up against an island, well, my AA can't provide any help whatsoever. So I'm in my own smoke. So the Minotaur is going to be effective because its default natural playstyle is a little bit further away, and sneaky torpedo attack. He thought he could do some sneaky attacks on me. But yeah, the default play state of the Minnow is going to work really well considering the AA's line of sight effectiveness. And he tried to do a smoke attack, and boy, did he suffer. He lost a lot of aircraft for that. But I like it. It's something that, honestly, an aircraft carrier might try to do. He might try and find that window that he can punish. Clearly, it didn't work that way. But the flank's working out just fine. This is what I would expect a Minotaur to potentially do on Sleeping Giant. This is a great area where your AA bubble, honestly, is large enough that any ship that may or may not camp over on the north side of this island chain, they would be covered by my bubble. Now, I felt like, I need to maybe relocate a little bit closer. The friendly Yamato is a little far forward, if we're honest with ourselves, and I need to make sure that I still have AA coverage to prevent any dive bombs from landing on the Yamato. And while I'm doing this, I'm taking note of the location of my smoke, and when the smoke is in between my ship and the enemy, I'm obviously firing. This is nothing new, and this is a part of a regular battle. And, this is a regular player-controlled ship. We've already taken heavy losses in our DDs, And unfortunately, that's because the destroyers are bots. I would love to play a DD, but I think I needed to do this role to see if, a token AA cruiser was enough on a flank to be that security bubble. It absolutely is. If you have one token AA ship per side, which in this example you would probably need one on each, it's more than enough. The power is so extreme on something like the Minotaur, the Worcester, the Des Moines. You feel like a god with the way this AA works out. Now, the enemy's a little bit in the safe zone of my sector, so I'm trying to angle to punish. He is trying to punish me, but yeah, I think the punishment is definitely going to go his way. It's just, oh, man. It's just brutal. Every single squadron strafe, he loses 10,000 of his life. Just gone like that. Friendly Yamato, he is definitely vulnerable, and I am interpreting that torpedo bomber. I think what he's trying to do is use the island chain to avoid, and then he's going to come around and attack Yamato. So I want to make sure my AA is pointing that direction. Regardless of what happens, it needs to be there. There is a enemy battleship that moved towards the middle of the map. I don't know why he did that, other than he's a bot. For whatever reason, the bots just want to throw their lives away. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But he's broadside, so I'm going to punish the broadside. I am looking to go after cold coffee. He is a gearing, obviously, and he's pretty close. So I feel like I'm a light cruiser. I would love to shoot you. He's trying to hide in his smoke. I do have hydroacoustic up, and the hydroacoustic is up for two reasons. I want to see the torpedoes that are inevitably going to go in the water, and I also want to maybe get close enough to the gearing to see it. It is effective enough, and I had plenty of warning that I avoided those torpedoes rather well. But I feel like the enemy aircraft carrier, he's going to try again. And I think he's going to try on the opposite side of my ship. I'm going to position it to watch my back while moving forward towards the gearing. And I've seen a lot of gearings. Their attempts are hiding in smoke. Hiding in smoke feels like the most valid strategy. And, maybe that shouldn't be the case with aircraft carriers, but that's what it ends up feeling like. And oh no, out in the open, full broadside. Just instantly deleted. We've got an enemy bot Minotaur, which I will work on very quickly. Just a couple salvos at the waterline should be enough. And there you go, bot. Nope. Bots are bots, right? Nothing really to test. Oh. Okay, we have an incoming torpedo bomber from the northern side. I switch it quickly, and just look at how quick he was trying. I don't want to hear any criticisms that the aircraft carriers on the enemy team, they were, just throwing their lives away, and they weren't playing it in any efficient manner. He was really trying to see how effective everything could be. Is there a window where there's a vulnerability to the Minotaur and to a flank that's this established? He's doing exactly what I wanted him to do. I didn't want, in the worst case scenario, the aircraft carriers to avoid me completely. That's a terrible video. We actually have to have realistic attack runs from multiple aircraft carriers to see how well the AA can hold up. And that's what they did. So, really thankful to all of the participants in the training room. These are viewers and they're probably watching it right now. It makes this feel a lot more developed. Having multiple players working in tandem, and it's not just a token player with 11 other bots. It's a lot better. But we were detected by, I believe, radar, and I was moving to have the islands in between myself and the enemy. And oh god, we've got enemy aircraft that are keeping me spotted, and we have a Montana that is moving into position. I use my smoke, and I'm trying to use my AA to protect the friendly. And it does look like the enemy aircraft carrier is finding a little bit of a weird window where the sector is not on. Just happened to be the way it worked. But he plops down his aircraft, which easily is shot down. You really can't use fighters on top of the dedicated AA cruiser. They die as soon as they're placed. They really don't exist that long. And oh man, 3 versus 1 Bunny. I think what Bunny wants to do is he wants to punish me. Yes, of course he wants to. Oh, you know, completely blind. He does a couple citadels. To be expected, I guess. We shot down the enemy aircraft carrier, and he tried again to drop his fighters, which again did absolutely nothing. Which you would expect against a Minotaur. Minotaur is scary powerful. Like, it is a very easy AA system to run. I don't have to consider defensive fire. I don't really have to consider high explosive versus armor piercing. I just have to keep the sector on the direction the enemy's coming from. And the AA is going to do the rest. The AA is going to do the rest. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. We're going to take a little torpedo damage here. Doesn't cause a flood, thankfully. Again, there's a fighter over the area. And again, the fighters are going to be shot down. This is something that clearly will develop over time. People will recognize what they need to do. But these are mistakes that, you know, every player is probably going to make. They're going to place their fighters in a position that they feel is functioning, but it ends up being the worst possible position because it's right smack in range of an enemy cruiser with crazy AA. It's just the way people are going to have to, you know, get used to the system. Now, I am in a precarious position. I'm attempting to capture the base while keeping an island in between my ship and the enemy. And, you know, what I probably should have done is I probably should have sailed forward. Look at what Bunny's doing. Bunny is recognizing. Oh, I should have sailed forward. Oh, no. Well, we know what we're going to happen. We're going to get deleted. But we shot down 54 aircraft. We kept this side of the fleet pretty safe. We did lose a couple friendlies and obviously the bot DDs. But AA's good. AA's really good. And just a couple ships per side. If you had 2 cruisers per side or 2 dedicated AA ships per side that you could retreat to or group up with, feels like effectively the enemy aircraft carriers are neutralized. And that's what I was curious about. How many players would have to be skillful and knowledgeable in the AA system to be able to defend their team? Not that many, it seems. Not that many, in fact. But once you take out this target, once the Minotaur's gone, there's really nothing that can stop the overwhelming attack runs from the aircraft. You've got to have that sort of token, really powerful AA platform. And this is as important as having, you know, token radar ships, token battleships that provide you with different skills, either high explosive, armor piercing, tank ability, speed, you know, maneuverability, flanking potential. It's just another tool in the tool chest. And this tool has always existed, but there really hasn't been a reason for it to exist because aircraft carriers up until, you know, the CV Rework have really not had a lot of people playing them. So obviously we're going to exist in a world where AA specialized cruisers will be very effective for their team. I expect that the aircraft carrier will have the same sort of consideration that destroyers have right now, only instead of radar ships, it's going to be those super powerful AA ships that they're going to have to consider and see if they can wipe out without having too much impact on their ability to dominate the game. But this felt great. I felt like I was very powerful. I felt like it wasn't just throwing aircraft at a problem. It was multiple attempts from multiple aircraft carriers to try and get damage down on me, friendlies around me, and I was able to very effectively deal with the fighter aura that they tried to place. And obviously the AA aura was very, very effective at just defending my team. And, could have been better? Yeah, sure. Could the bots have not controlled DDs and run their faces into death? Yes. It was almost a full game. But it definitely felt more real than any of the bot games ever felt. The bots are just stupid. They just sail forward and die. And if you have like 80% of the team sail forward and die in the first 10 minutes of the game, I mean, that's not what people do. People are more conservative. People will play out the full 20 minutes. That's what they usually do. So I'm interested in the system. Obviously, this is a tier 10 game, and I feel like a tier 10 is the most well-balanced for the aircraft carrier and the AA system. But outside of tier 10, tier 8, tier 6, tier 4, I'm not quite as positive. The tier 4 bracket, you basically have no AA, almost no AA, and the aircraft carrier just has free reign to attack. But he doesn't have a fighter that can stop the enemy aircraft carrier. So he's just going to farm small amounts of damage for free at tier 4. At tier 6, it's a little less free, but it's still really easy to avoid the flak and avoid most of the threats. Tier 8, it's working itself into where, okay, flak is noticeable, it's thick enough, but it's still less thick than it would be at tier 10. And if you've learned how to play tier 10 aircraft carrier very well, you can play tier 4, tier 6, and tier 8 at the exact same level, if not higher. That's just the nature of the system. So it needs to be balanced a little bit better. Tier 4, 6, and 8. I think that the AA system should feel as impactful and as noticeable as it does at tier 10 and consistent. And I just don't feel like it's there yet. So I'm very pleased with phase 3 testing, especially at tier 10. But I want that same level of consistency at all the other aircraft carrier tiers. And this isn't even considering, tier 9s and tier 7s, what their impact may or may not be on aircraft carriers. There's not a lot of people testing that. It's not as, deep in the queue that we can have that variety of targets. This was all tier 10s. Every single target was a tier 10. And that may seem heavy, but for the longest time, we've had to deal with a lot of legendary players looking to grind out. So honestly, an all tier 10 game is actually possible. So I'm happy with the results. If you're interested in more of this style of testing, leave in the comments what you think. I would love to try and organize some training room session games with a full 12 versus 12 player controlled. And I obviously want to replicate any situation that might come up. All tier 8, all tier 6, all tier 4, some token tier 5, some token tier 7, some token tier 9s. Don't know how valid that is. We don't have a lot of time to test. I think we have like 2 days left. But I'll definitely be doing this more on my stream, twitch.tv/Notser. And, maybe we just test premium tier 8s as well. I think that's probably the best next direction to go. I don't really have any more concerns about tier 10. Tier 10 feels fine. It's all the other tiers that feel a little squirrely. And you know what? Maybe Wargaming is okay with tier 10 being the only one that feels balanced, but I would definitely prefer it if aircraft carriers top tier didn't feel so dominant, and if each token tier, tier 4, tier 6, and tier 8, had the same level of, control over the environment as I feel like I have at tier 10. I feel like my active maneuvering, I feel like my AA systems, my main battery, my commander spec, my module selection, even the flags I'm using, they all feel way more balanced at tier 10. So, once again, hopefully you enjoyed this. Leave in the comments if you want to discuss anything that was brought up. Tier 10 balance, the training room, Tier 6, Tier 4, Tier 8 balance as well. I'm curious to read any and all things. I do have some real concerns here. I'm curious if you have the same concerns as I do. But enemy team definitely bested us, and I felt like I needed to stay alive in order to prevent that, but I couldn't. The aircraft carrier is really the late game unit. And since it's a training room, there's not really going to be valid stats, but look at the amount of aircraft that are shot down. It's really noticeable how much more are shot down with the player-controlled ships. I think that's a good sign. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you'll have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.